What's going on, summoners? Welcome back to another Wild Rift video. My name is Kangas, and today we'll be going over how you can win games when you accidentally feed the enemy. If you're always getting snowballed on and want to know how to mount epic comebacks and secure more LP, we're here to help. The first step to begin your path to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat is to stop giving gold over to fed champions. A carry with a few kills makes for a difficult game, but it only gets harder as their kill count increases. If you can stop the bleeding and keep your own gold income stable, the relative gap between your team and the fed enemy champion will decrease. You also have 6 item slots on the Wild Rift, so if the game continues to stall out, any previous leads will be made irrelevant. If the fed champion is your individual opponent, there's plenty of different ways you can help stem the bleeding and stop them from snowballing. The first step is to pay respect to your opponent, and to not fight them or give them opportunities to kill you. If they make a huge mistake, like tanking multiple turret shots, then you should try and punish them. But for the most part, they're already fed, and the likelihood that you can kill them is small. Give them space, and try to stay out of their effective range. The next thing you can do is try to minimize the amount of gold that they're getting. Clearing your wave quickly and making sure you're always there to defend your tower is important, so that they don't collect plates and the gold for taking the first tower. Warding nearby camps so you can punish them if they overextend is also a great way to shut them down. You should also be looking to ward the paths that they'll likely take to roam so that your teammates have ample time to spot them and respond. You want to stop them from dominating the map and snowballing onto your other lanes, so the vision is important. If you can keep deaths low across the board, they'll find it harder to expand their lead. If the fed champion isn't your direct opponent, it's still important to go out of your way to play around them. If you have pushed your wave, it's a great use of your time to try and roam to the lane that is struggling. If you can get the shutdown bonus, it'll make the game so much easier for you. Imagine all that gold in your pocket. Just make sure you don't get 2v1. You also should minimize the amount of trading you do in lane if the fed enemy is a heavy roamer, as you'll be easy pickings for them if you're low HP. Always be mindful of where they are on the map and play accordingly. Check that minimap. Before we continue though, our question of the day is, what champion is always getting fed in your games? Darius always seems to be racking up the kills with his ultimate reset and is always fed in my games. My top laners just can't deal with him for whatever reason, but let us know yours in the comments down below. Now this is a bit of a cliche tip, but it's still super important to make sure that you don't get angry or upset and go on tilt in your games when you start to lose. Sometimes you're just outclassed, and that's okay. You're gonna lose some games. However, most of the time, the player skill on both teams will be pretty close. This means that you should be able to stall out and come back in a surprising amount of your games as long as you keep focused and don't give up. Trust me, they're probably as good or as bad as you are, and them getting a lead doesn't mean the game is over. They will make mistakes. Players are super likely to overextend or overreach and throw their lead, so take advantage of this. If you can remain collected and give them as few opportunities as you can, they'll likely get bored, frustrated, or just try to make some stylish play and donate all of that juicy shutdown gold straight to you. Always be looking for what you can do in the game, and an opportunity may just present itself. As soon as you go on autopilot and stop trying your hardest though, that's when the game is really lost. This also goes for any time that you're ahead too. You're likely pretty close in skill to the rest of the players in the game, so if you don't concentrate just as hard when you're having a banger game, you might find yourself becoming good friends with the defeat screen. Anyway, let's get back to talking about how to deal with a fed enemy. Once you've stopped the bleeding, it's time to consider what sort of plays you can make to begin to take the game back into your own hands. The first play you should consider is to make a play on the fed enemy champion. Often, players will be cocky and eager to fight, so it's pretty trivial to bait them into an unfavorable situation. If they split up from their team, look to group with your own and create a numbers advantage situation so that you can secure that shutdown for your team. When making this play, it's crucial to consider the outplay potential of the enemy champion in these situations. If you're 5-manning a Jinx, then you probably don't have much to worry about. But if you're just 2-manning a Darius or Fiora, there's good odds that the gank doesn't actually work out for you and that you lose the fight. Lots of champions are good at turning around fights when ahead, so if you're not sure whether you can kill them, it's best to call it off. It's absolutely disastrous to commit your team to a play and then get outplayed by one single enemy, so if you're not sure, don't do it. Nothing tilts you harder than feeding them more. A great way to find situations where the enemy can't fight back as well is to engage on them when they're attacking your towers. Often, fed players will look to split push and apply pressure, which means they'll likely be stepping up to attack the tower and try and get plates, or just the gold from the turret. If you can ambush them as they do so, even if they could maybe kill you outside of the tower, they're forced to retreat before they can even try and turn it around, which might buy you just enough damage to shut them down. Possibly the best way to get kills on fed champions is to bait them into your own team. When you're behind, trading 1 for 1 is usually a big win because you don't have control over the game, so an even trade is considered a victory. And they also usually come with a shutdown bonus, which means your team gets more gold from the kill. Running down a side lane and taking a duel just to have your team swoop in at the last moment is a good way to set this up. Just make sure your team is on board and knows your plan so you can get them to help. If they're not paying attention, this one is hard to pull off and they'll just blame you for feeding. If the enemy Fed member respects you, well, that's okay. Just push the wave and move into the next tactic, this time making plays away from the Fed member. If you're getting scared of getting multi-killed or the enemy Fed champion is proving too hard to kill, then the best thing you can do is attack their team when the Fed enemy is away from the group. There's 3 lanes of minions after all, and the entire jungle to the Wild Rift, and the Fed champ can't be everywhere at once. Wait for them to show on the map, and then strike where they aren't. This tactic is especially effective when you have champions like Amumu or Malphite with powerful initiation tools. It's as simple as when the Fed champ shows up on a wave that isn't with their team, engage on their team. You have a numbers advantage already since one champion isn't there, and specifically the one with their gold isn't there, giving you an even bigger advantage. Sometimes the best way to equalize the gold isn't to shut down the Fed carry, it's to create your own. Teleport enchant can be very useful here. You can use it to set up flanks on the enemy team, or to get back to defend your own base after successfully engaging on them. 1,000 gold for no combat stats will set you back slightly individually, but it doesn't really matter because the win condition isn't to win the duel versus the enemy Fed member. Remember, you're trying to escape and fight elsewhere. If you do this though, make sure to communicate with your team and ask for teleport wards so you can get those surprise flanks and make the most out of your investment. Now that you know how to stop the bleeding and start making plays to get back into the game, we're going to go over a team fighting concept that is going to help you win many more games. It is incredibly important to understand your role inside of a team composition and how your team and the enemy team wins fights. But it's also important to consider how the amount of gold each champion has can affect that. For example, when playing on a team with Jinx while the enemy team has a Zed, your first thought might be that your win condition is to peel the Zed away from the Jinx so that she can carry the rest of the fight with her rocket auto attacks. While correct in isolation and theory, this doesn't take into account the game state. Jinx could be really far behind, and keeping her alive won't actually win you the fight because she doesn't have the gold to buy the items that will allow her to do the correct damage that she needs to carry. Zed might also be really far behind, which means Jinx might be able to deal with him all on her own because he can't just blow her up with all the gold he spent on his items. In this instance, your Camille might also be really far ahead, which means that instead of peeling for Jinx, you should be helping her dive the backline to win the fight. Every game and every team fight is going to be different, so you have to try and judge them to the best of your ability. Some things on the Wild Rift just can't be beat head on, and you have to go around them. If the enemy Dr. Mundo has 10 kills, let's be honest, he's probably not going to die. He's also probably going to solo your AD carry and maybe your mid laner too. This is simply the reality that you have to accept, and trying to fight this will lose you games. It might not be possible to peel the Mundo even if that's what your AD carry wants you to do. In that situation, the only way you can win is to try and explode the enemy carries and hope that your backline can survive for long enough that you can come back and 1v5 the Mundo. Don't be stubborn and bash your head against the brick wall. Always get creative and look for the solution. Wild Rift is a game about cool outplays and team fighting, but it's also about strategy and problem solving. If there's one thing we want you to take away from this video, it's that Wild Rift games cannot be predicted. Weird things are going to happen, and you're just going to have to find a way to beat it or lose it. Don't get mad that the enemy Master Yi is fed and then try and duel him over and over. Don't walk into the Darius one by one and feed him a pentakill. Stop for a moment, remain calm, think of a way to win, and then try and execute. As well as being the best way to win your games, this is also the best way to learn. Getting angry and doing silly things in game doesn't let you learn anything at all, while thinking about the game and testing something out definitely does. Keep an open mind, and remember, keep trying your best. I believe you can do it. Well, that wraps up everything you need to know to pull out those clutch wins in the tough games. Make sure to keep a clear head and make the best decisions you can, and you'll find yourself winning games that look completely unwinnable otherwise. Thanks so much for watching, and also don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. As always, best of luck on the Rift, stay hydrated, and wash those hands.